Children, we have started the lesson chapter 1 and we learned about the Statue of Liberty, nationalism, nation states. Today we are going to learn about the making of nationalism in Europe. Keep the textbook in front of you and learn the meanings for the difficult words. See, look at the map of mid-18th century. Europe will find there were no nation states. What we know today as Germany, Italy, Switzerland were divided into kingdoms, duchies, cantons whose rulers their autonomous territories. Eastern and Central Europe were under the autocratic monarchies within the territories of which lived diverse people. They did not see themselves as sharing a collective identity or a common culture. Often they even spoke different languages and belonged to different ethnic groups. The Habsburg Empire that ruled over Austria, Hungary, for example, was a patchwork of many different regions and peoples. It included the Alpine regions, Tyrol, Austria and Sudetenland, as well as the Bohemians where the aristocracy was predominantly German-speaking. It also included the Italian-speaking provinces in Lombardy and Venetia. In Hungary, half of the people spoke Magyar, while other half spoke variety of dialects. Besides these three dominant groups, there also lived within the boundaries of this empire a mass of subject peasant peoples, Bohemians and Slovaks to the north, Slovenes in Carniola, Croats to the south, the Romans to the east, in Transylvania. Such differences did not easy to promote a sense of political unity. The only tie binding these diverse groups together was a common allegiance to the empire. What we are going to understand in this paragraph is this map shows, that is mid-18th century map, we will find that there were no nation states. But what we know today, Germany, Italy, Switzerland divided into kingdoms and duchies, cantons whose rulers had their autonomous territories. Underline the word autonomous. Autonomous means independent territories they are all. And Eastern and Central Europe under the autocratic monarchies. Within the territories, they lived with the diverse people. What do you mean by diverse people? Means they did not see themselves sharing a common identity or common culture, and they spoke different languages, and they belonged to different ethnic groups, and people, they come from different regions. So all these regions, that is Alpine region, Tyrol, Austria, Sudetenland, as well as Bohemia, where aristocracy was predominantly German speaking. Italian speaking provinces are Lombardy and Venetia. In Hungary, half of the people spoke Magyar, while other half spoke variety of dialects. That means variety of languages they were speaking. Besides these, three dominant groups were there. In the same empire, there were dominant groups were there. The subject peasant peoples, Bohemians and Slovaks to the north, Slovenes in Carniola, Croats to the south, the Romans to the east in Transylvania. In this, such differences did not easy to promote the people with the sense of political unity. It is a big challenge for the empire to unite the people. So the only tie binding these diverse groups together was a common allegiance to the emperor. So in this situation, how did the nationalism and the idea of nation state emerge? How this idea came to the people? So next we are moving on to the aristocracy and the new middle class. Socially and politically, a landed aristocracy was the dominant class to the on the continent. The members of this class were united by a common way of life and cut across regional divisions. They owned estates in the countryside and also townhouses. They spoke French for purpose of diplomacy and high society. Their families were often connected by ties of marriage. This powerful autocracy was, however, numerically a small group The majority of the population was made up of the peasantry. To the west, the bulk of the land was farmed by tenants and small owners. While Eastern and Central Europe, the pattern of landholding was characterized by the vast estates which were cultivated by serfs. What you are going to learn in this group is the aristocracy people are middle and the middle class. The aristocracy, underline the word, that is high class society people, high class people. Socially they were very high because they have a good status, and even middle class people were also there in this territory, in this continent. They are the dominant classes. These aristocracy people were dominant classes in this continent. The members of this class were united by a common way of life. They are led their life in a common way, and they owned estates and they owned houses. They spoke French for the purpose of diplomacy and high in society. And the families were often connected with their families only. That means they married the people within their families. This power of aristocracy, however, is very small. The people are in this group was very small. They are not having a big group of people were not there. They were very small. The majority of the population was made up of peasantry. The west, the bulk of land was farmed by the tenants and the small owners are there. But in the Eastern and Central Europe, the vast estates were there, and also the land holding characterized the people were more, but which were cultivated, the land was cultivated by the serfs. In Western and parts of Central Europe, growth of industrial production and trade meant the growth of towns, and that emerged the commercial classes, whose existence was based on production for the market. Industrialization began in England in the second half of the 18th century, but in France and Paris, the German states, it occurred only during the 19th century. In its wake, new social groups came into being. A working class population and middle classes made up of industrialists, businessmen and professionals. In Central and Eastern Europe, these groups were smaller in number till late 19th century. It was among the educated liberal middle classes that idea of national unity following the abolition of aristocratic privileges gained popularity. What you understand in this paragraph? I'll explain you. In Western and parts of Central Europe, the growth of industrial production and trade meant by the growth of towns. As soon as the industrial developed, automatically towns also will grow. That we know already. The industrialization began in mid-18th century in England, and in France, Germany states occurred during in the 19th century. So in its wake of social groups, that means when the industrialization was implemented, was started, the social groups came into being. That means the working class people and the middle class people, industrialists, businessmen and professionalists. In Central and Eastern Europe, these groups were small in numbers till the 19th century. These professionalists and this middle class business people were there, no? They were very small in numbers, but it was among the very small in numbers, but they were very educated. And the liberal middle classes, that idea, the liberal middle classes, that idea of national unity following the abolition of aristocratic privileges gained popularity. So these educated people and liberal middle classes, they had an idea to national unity and the abolition of aristocratic privileges. What did liberal nationalism stand for? Ideas of national unity in early 19th century Europe were closely allied to the ideology of liberalism. The term liberalism derives from the Latin root liber, meaning free. For the new middle classes, liberalism stood for freedom for the individual and equality for all before the law. Politically, it emphasized the concept of government by consent. Since the French Revolution, liberalism had stood for end of autocracy and clerical privileges, a constitution and representative government through parliament. 19th century, liberal was stressed the inviolability of private property. First, we should understand the meaning of liberalism. What do you mean by liber? That means free. So, this word derives from the Latin word. So, for the middle classes, liberalism is stood for freedom. For the individual and for every individual, and this word is stood for the equality of all before the law. Politically, it emphasizes the concept of the government. This liberalism is a concept of the government. But since the French Revolution, it is stood for the autocracy and clerical privileges. Constitution representatives the government through the parliament. But in 19th century, liberate also stressed the inviolability of private property. That means freedom we needed. So that what is related to the government only. Yet equality before the law did not necessarily stand for universal suffrage. You will recall that in revolutionary France, which marked the first political experiment in liberal democracy, the right to vote elected was granted exclusively to property-owned men. Men without the property and all women were excluded from political rights. Only for a brief period under the Jacobins did all the adults male enjoy suffrage. However, the Napoleonic Code went back to limited suffrage and reduced the woman to the status of minor, subject to the authority of fathers and husbands. Throughout the 19th century, women and non-propertied men organized opposition movements demanding equal political rights. What do you understand in this paragraph? In this paragraph, they explained about the liberal is there. Liberal was there at the time. Liberalism was there. But this was not necessary for the universal suffrage. What do you mean by suffrage? Underline the word. The right to vote. Suffrage means right to vote. But in the France Revolution, they marked first political experiment in liberal democracy. Right to vote and to get elected was granted exclusively for women and non-property men. That means the men, if they don't have any property, they are not supposed to vote. They don't have right to vote. Women are exclusively not having right to vote. But in the Jacobins period, all adults males enjoy this suffrage. However, in the Napoleonic Code went back to the limited suffrage, reduced to women's status of a minor. Throughout the 19th century and early 20th century, the women and non-property men organized opposition, but they are opposed to this system. Isn't it? See, if they don't have a property, they should not vote. Means there was no meaning for that. So they opposed that, including the women, the men and non-property men and the women. They opposed this system throughout the 19th and till early 20th centuries to demand the equal political rights. They were demanding the government to give the equal political rights to them. In the economic sphere, liberalism stood for the freedom of markets and the abolition of state-imposed restrictions on the movement of goods and capital. During the 19th century, this was strong demand of the emerging middle classes. Let us take the example of the German-speaking regions in the first half of the 19th century. Economically, liberalism stood for the freedom of markets and abolition of the state-imposed restrictions on the movement of goods and capitals. That means this liberalism also, it is also stood for the economic movement. That means the goods will carrying from one state to another state, right? That movements were restricted there. So the liberalism was Napoleon's administration measures had created out of countless small principalities a confederation of 39 states. Each of these possessed its own currency and weights and measures. A merchant traveling in 1833 from Hamburg to Nuremberg to sell his goods would have had to pass through 11 custom barriers and pay a customs duty about 5% at each one of them. Duties were often levied according to the weight or measurement of the goods. As each region had its own system of weights and measures, this involved the time-consuming calculation. The measure of the Napoleonic administrative measures had created a countless small principalities. That means they had 39 states. Each of these state their own currency. That means 39 types of currencies were there. And they have their own system of weights and measures. See, a merchant traveling from one state to another state, it's very difficult for them. Simple example, in 1833, Hamburg to Nuremberg to sell his goods. Merchant was traveling from Hamburg to Nuremberg to sell his goods. He had to pass 11 barriers, 11 custom barriers. That is 11 states he has to cross from there. When he was crossing, he has to pay the customs for each one of them. Each one of them at the cost of 5%. So when every barriers, if he was crossing, he has to pay the tax. He has to stop there. The person has to calculate and he has to take that. So these are all very difficult to calculate and it takes so much of time to reach the places. Right. So in this situation, the people were thinking it is very difficult. People were thinking about the difficulties of this system. Such conditions were viewed as obstacles to economic exchange and growth by the commercial classes who argued for the creation of unified economic territory, allowing the unhindered movement of goods, people and capital. In 1834, a custom union formed at the initiative of Prussia and joined by most of the German states. The union abolished tariff barriers and reduced the number of currencies from over 30 to 2. The creation of network of railways further stimulated mobility, harnessing economic interest to national unification. A wave of economic nationalism strengthened the wider nationalist sentiments growing at the time. That was the condition were viewed as obstacles to economic exchange and growth of new commercial classes. So what they thought that they want to make one unified economic territory allowing the unhindered movement of goods, people and capital. That means reducing the currencies and the uniform system in weight and measures in all the states. That was the easiest way to carry the goods from one place to another place. That is the intentions of the people. In 1834, a custom union formed at the initiative of Prussia and joined by most of German states. These states were united and they abolished the tariff barriers by most of the states. They abolished the tariff barriers and reduced the number of currencies. 30 were there before, they reduced into 2. This helped the creation of railway network further stimulated mobility, harnessing economic interest to the national unification. if the goods or people were carrying from one place to another place and the capital carrying to one place to another place, automatically national unification was there. A wave of economic nationalism strengthened and wider nationalist sentiments growing at the time. A new conservation after 1815. Following the defeat of Napoleon in 1815, European governments were driven by the spirit of conservatism. Conservatives believed that established traditional institutions of state and society like the monarchy, the church, the social hierarchies, property and the family should be preserved. Most conservatives, however, did not propose a return to the society of pre-revolutionary days. Rather, they realized from the changes initiated by the Napoleon that modernization could in fact strengthen traditional institutions like monarchy. It could make state power more effective and strong. A modern army, an efficient bureaucracy, a dynamic economy, the abolition of feudalism and serfdom could strengthen the autocratic monarchies of Europe. Underline the word conservatism. Conservatism means private ownership, the favoring of the private ownership. So conservatives believed that the establishment traditional institution and they are supported to the monarchy. Conservatives were supported to the monarchies. So after the defeat of Napoleon in 1815, they removed the modern army, efficient bureaucracy, dynamic, what he was implemented before, they removed it. And in 1815, the representative of the European powers, the Britain, Russia, Prussia and Austria, they collectively defeated the Napoleon and met at Vienna to draw up a settlement for Europe. The Congress was hosted by the Austrian Chancellor Duke Metternich. In 1815, representative of the European powers, that Britain, Russia, Prussia and Austria, collectively defeated the Napoleon. The Napoleon rule was not accepted by them and they defeat him. After defeating Napoleon, met at Vienna to draw the settlement for Europe. And the Congress hosted the Austrian Chancellor Duke Metternich. The delegates drew up the Treaty of Vienna of 1815 with the object of undoing most of the changes that had come about in Europe during the Napoleonic Wars. What the Napoleon was implemented, that everything was drew up from the system. And before we learnt about the Bourbon family. Yes, Bourbon dynasty was there. After that only Napoleon came, right? So now again the Bourbon family restored their power. Again they came to the power and France lost the territories it has annexed under Napoleon. So some of the territories was annexed by Napoleon, right? That was lost. A series of states were set up on the boundaries of France to prevent French expansion in future. The boundaries were set up there to prevent the expansion of the French. The Kingdom of Netherlands, Belgium set up in the north, Genoa in the south and Austria in the northern Italy. But the German Confederation of 39 states that had set up by Napoleon, that was left untouched. The intention of restore the monarchies. Only the monarchies has to restore them. That was the main reason to restore the monarchies that had been overthrown by Napoleon and create a new conservative order in Europe. These conservative regimes set up in 1815 were autocratic. Underline the word autocratic means the person has total power. That is, almost it is from monarchy only. Conservative regimes set up in 1815 were autocratic. They did not tolerate criticism and dissent and sort of curb activities that questioned the legitimacy of autocratic governments. Most of them imposed censorship laws to control what was said in newspapers, books, plays, and songs reflected the ideas of liberty and freedom associated with the French Revolution. The memory of French Revolution nonetheless continued to inspire liberals. One of the major issues taken by the liberal nationalists who criticized the new conservative order was freedom of the press. The regimes set up in 1815, they were autocratic. They did not tolerate the criticism, dissent, and curb activities. So they imposed censorship laws and control what was said in the newspaper, books, and play songs reflected the ideas liberty and freedom associated with the French Revolution. The memory of the French Revolution continued to inspire the liberals, inspire the people. One of the major issues taken by the liberal nationalists was the freedom of press. During the years following in 1815, the fears of repression drove many liberal nationalists underground. Secret societies sprang up in many European states to train revolutionaries and spread their ideas. To be revolutionary at this time meant a commitment to oppose monarchical forms that had been established after Vienna Congress and fight to liberty and freedom. Most of these revolutionaries also saw a creation of nation state as a necessary part of this struggle for freedom. See, in this paragraph, they explained about the liberalism and the freedom. See, in 1815, the fear of repression drew many liberal nationalists underground. They had some fear. So what they did, the secret societies were established in the European states. So what is the idea of this secret society was to establish the So during the years of 1815, the secret societies were established by the European state. The intention of these secret societies were to form the revolutionaries to spread the ideas, to spread the ideas of freedom. That is what is meant by this meant the commitment to oppose the monarchical system of government. That is the main aim of this society. See, after the Vienna Congress and to fight for liberty and freedom. So most of these revolutionaries also saw the creation of nation state that was necessary a part of a struggle for freedom. Nation state was very important to struggle for the freedom. See, one such individual was the Italian revolutionary Giuseppe Mazzini. Born in Geneva in 1807, he became a member of the secret society of the Carbonari. As a young man of 24, he was sent to exile in 1831 for attempting a revolution in Liguria. He subsequently founded two more underground societies, first Young Italy in Miceli and then Young Europe in Berne, whose members were like-minded young men from Poland, France, Italy and German states. Mazzini believed that God had intended nations to be natural units of mankind. So, Italy could not continue to be a patchwork of small states and kingdoms. It had to be forged into a single unified republic within a wider alliance of nations. This unification alone could be basis of the Italian liberty. Following this model, secret societies were set up in Germany, France, Switzerland, and Poland. Mazzini's relentless opposition to monarchy and his vision of democratic republics frightened the conservatives. Giuseppe Mazzini, born in Geneva in 1807, he became the member of secret society. In 1831, just he was 24 years, in 1831, he sent to the attempting the revolutionary in Liguria. When he was in that place, he saw another two societies were there. First, Young Italy in Marseilles and then Young Europe in Berne. So what he thought that they were together, they started to this revolution, and the France, Poland, Italy and German state also joined with them. And Mazzini believed that God had intended nations to be a natural units of mankind. So Italy could not continue to be a patchwork of small states and kingdoms. So it had forged into the single unified republic within a wider alliance of these nations. So all these nations united together, and this unification alone could be a basis of Italian liberty. So following this model of secret societies, the other countries, Germany, France, Switzerland and Poland, were also joined together for this revolution, for this unification. Mazzini's relentless opposition to monarchy and his vision of democratic republic frightened the conservatives. Metternich described him as the most dangerous enemy for our social order. He describes him as the dangerous enemy for our social order. Thank you, children. Next class we will continue the age of revolutions. I will give you some questions. Please answer these questions in your notebook or in the rough note. If you have any doubt, please put a message in the WhatsApp. Thank you.